Welcome to the Four Visions Market Podcast, a space built on the principles of integrity and reciprocity. Together, we will engage in thought-provoking conversations about plant medicines, why these plants are coming out of the rainforest, jungles, and mountains after thousands of years, and what it means to be in right relationship with the ancestral wisdom cultures and guardians of these traditions. I'm your host, Mariah Ganessa, founder and director of Four Visions Market. This podcast is the natural evolution in our commitment to providing you, our tribe, with incredible resources to support you on your healing journey through plant medicines. Welcome home. Welcome back, Four Visions tribe. Today on the show, we welcome Kale Kaalekahi, spiritual activist, cultural innovator, and radical visionary, a lineage carrier of indigenous lifeways and traditions, holding the teachings and stories that have been passed on to him, a practitioner of living system designs, human making, and ceremony and ritual. Kale joins us live from Maui this week to give us a boots on the ground, very raw and real report of what's really going on for the community in the wake of the Lahaina fire disaster. This special episode is airing on September 11th, and it feels very fitting to honor the lives lost and the families that have endured unimaginable hardship in the wake of both of these tragedies. We pray that today's episode can offer food for thought as a collective consciousness as we navigate this human experience. Thank you, family, for tuning in. Enjoy today's potent conversation. Well, welcome, Brother Kale. It's such a pleasure and an honor to have you on the show. I'm so excited to get to connect with you further and get to share your powerful medicine with our community. I just want to first off say that it's been such a beautiful thing to witness your leadership emerge during this recent time of challenge for what's going on out in Maui, and just to get to have the incredible wisdom and sharing that's been coming through you. I just want to really acknowledge that and say that it's been a real blessing to have you as well as other leaders stepping forward at this time, speaking truth, sharing what's really going on, as well as coming from a place of true leadership, which is what we are so needing at this time with everything that's going on. So I just want to say thank you and welcome so much.
Mahalo. Thank you for the kind and endearing words. And yes, I hope to continue to be of service for my community and to be able to show up and be present with all the multitude of things going on. So as the brokenness happens, I continue to be shaped by it all, holding the grief and the praise in two hands. So yeah, thank you very much. I'm happy to be here too. I'm excited. Four Visions Market.
So beautiful. So you are a spiritual activist, a cultural innovator, a lineage carrier, and a cultural teacher and leader. For those who maybe are not familiar with who you are and the work that you are here on this earth to do, could we start with a little introduction and hear a little bit more about you?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, my name is Kale Kaalekahi. I'm son of Mariah Kaalekahi and Charles Patrick Murray, and my grandparents are from the island of Molokai, and my great-grandparents came from Mokuokiave, the big island of Hawaii, as people would call. And I have families stretched out from those lineages that go across pretty much all the islands except for Niihau and Kauai. And then I have lineal descendancies that's from Turtle Island in the States, and also all the way back to Ireland and Scotland and some German and Norwegian. So I'm a mixed breed over here, a hybrid sitting in the middle of the ocean on some lava rocks, we call, these mountains. So that's a little bit about me. I journeyed through learning about my culture from my grandparents for a time, and then also from my parenting from my mom. And then as I graduated from schooling, I went to university And then I joined a halau that we call in Hawaii, which is a cultural school, and that's where I had kumu, which is our word for teacher. It also means like tree or source. And that's when I started to really fully delve into what the teachings of in my childhood to where I'm at today of learning like, different ecologies of historical ecologies, cultural ecologies. Because ecology in many ways can be understood as like how everything's related to each other, how any piece, whether it be being or artifact, is animate, and how does that role play within a grander living system, right? And so that's how I came to be. I learned hula, dance, and chant, language, craft making, ways to be with the earth, different methods of wild tending and traditional agricultural practices, and being in the lo'i, understanding land. So there's all of that. This is a lot. I could say, to really put it through is if you join cultural school, no matter where you're at, you join cultural school, it's a very large deterrent from getting a 9 to 5 job. I can say
That's real.
that.
Yeah, I second that for
It's a
sure.
big deterrent. Yeah.
Hmm. Well, it's beautiful. It's great to hear a little bit more about your story, your background, and I love this claiming of the roots and going back to our origin story and really this beautiful journey of returning home. And I love that you are holding that for your people and are sharing about that and also inspiring other people to do the same because it's so important as we are at this pivotal time in humanity's evolution that we all reclaim and return and really take time
Yeah.
to learn where we come from and let that be, the building blocks from which we dream up a new earth. And so I really feel that come through really
Yes.
strongly with you and your work.
Thank you. Yeah, it's good to talk about it too, like the emergent quality of things. Yeah, that the whole is greater than the sum of the parts in such a way of this emergent, like same thing when you what's that word when you love nature or life, you call it biophilia. Yeah, it's just like this endearing quality of that love and that nurturing, and that's where I believe humanity understands themselves. It doesn't happen just from human concocted ceremonies or rituals. It actually comes in deep relationship with a nurturing world, a wild natural earth. That there's a sort of indebtedness that we have that we can never repay in the sense. So we continue to put ourselves into this submission or this surrender to work with nature that's not separate from ourselves. And so anyway, that emergent quality that I see, that return, that reclaim, um, a rebirth. It's going back to that original source, and just maybe even being claimed by that source, that mother, that father, that great 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 grandparent. 7 generations back. That, I believe that's what we're doing. It's like a re-indigenizing. You know, there's a lot of talk about the decolonize, and I see that, but I also wonder is like how do we re-indigenize as well? Because in the etymology of indigenous is that of a place born into. It doesn't say much about claiming. It says more about being claimed by because of where you were born into. So how do you belong and how do you love your home? So the decolonizing is like removing something, and what's left is probably like a gap or a dip, a divot, something in the earth. So what do you fill it in with? So that's just kind of the ecology that I look at.
Mhm. I love that. So beautifully said. Thank you. And yeah, I love it because also, you're coming at it from a different ancestry, a different viewpoint. But one of the things that we do at Four Visions is really bridge all ancestral traditions. And for example, in the
Yeah,
culture that I study with, which is the Yahi culture of South America, we talk a lot about spiritual payments and making payments to the earth. And I feel like the beautiful thing about the universality of what it means to be in right relationship with the earth is all of the wisdom, cultures, and
yeah,
traditions have their teachings, right? And it's really bringing us to the same
yeah,
core essence. So it's one of my passions to get to hear it expressed in different etymologies and cultures and storytelling, and to really
yeah,
see that they're all the same. So I love that.
yeah. Well, totally. Yeah, they're distant relatives. All of us, it's like we all live on the same earth. Yeah, so we're gonna have similarities, yet different. So I've always, I've had teachers. Even the things I talk about, I'm just being a parrot. Mimicking the songs and the words that I've heard from others, and become their maker's mark. And I had a teacher who was always talking about the original instructions and bringing the pieces back together again, and respecting everyone where they're at and honoring them. And then also in the places of where you find yourself of like, okay, how do I enhance the beauty around here? How to become a participant rather than just somebody that only knows how to take. And so when you talk about, Yaki out there, you learn from, and you're a part of it, it's like there's a beautiful fostering that happens. It's like, okay, let's see how we can bring each other around, because we all come from immigrant, migrant families, histories, lineages, nomadic, semi-nomadic. You go far enough back, you come from a people who came from people who were claimed by places, and so on and so forth. So we can, string the story all day. So it's like we're all orphans in a way. And many of my teachers have helped express that to me so I can have a deeper understanding, because even being part of a lineage and a culture and having a bloodline can get kind of lost in that too, and can find yourself narrow of vision because the world has gotten so small, and we tend to forget about our relatives on, even on the other side of the ocean. And there's a place for that too, because we gotta kind of take care of what we got, because we don't know how long we're gonna have it. And it comes from a place of really deep, endearing love to want to secure that for the generations coming. But also, I am who I am, and I enjoy being involved as a bridge for our people, no matter where we are. Bring it together. So thanks for sharing that. It got me like thinking.
Yeah, I feel like there's a lot of beautiful conversations that I would love to have with you, and I feel like there's so many ley lines and connections and weavings, and
Yeah.
and also this conversation is feeling so ripe, and we're coming together at this really important time to share a message that is I feel really needing to be shared, and I would like to bring it forth to the Four Visions family, which is why we planned this meeting and this time to connect when we did, as well as this episode is going to be launching on September 11th as well, which I feel like that's also a really good synchronicity, powerful synchronicity, as we're that day for Americans, and that day for for people who live in relation to Western society. It's a big day. It brings up a lot. And I feel like we're, with everything that's going on right now on the islands, it's like this great revelation, this great reckoning that's taking place. And so I just am really honoring the synchronicities of this meeting and the opportunity to connect with you today in this way. And with that, I would love to talk a little bit about what's going on right now. A lot of people who are, maybe listening to this podcast, their perceptions of the Lahaina disaster or the recent fire that has gone on in Maui, they might only have received what the media has given to them. And so because that is a very limited perception of what's really going on, what has been going on over the last few weeks, I would love to start there with, getting to hear from you, someone who is on the ground doing the work to take care of your community during this intense time and navigating all of the different elements that take place when a disaster strikes. Can we go into a little bit of a summary and an overview of what has happened, and what you're dealing with on the ground over there?
Yeah, definitely. Thank you. Yeah. This is I want to think about all of it as well. As I think I can say that it's a little difficult in the sense of like what I'm perceiving that's in my reality, and what I'm around and involved in with different local leaders, different grassroots community organizations that are doing volunteer work, going over to Maui Komohana, the west side of Maui, and then going up to Kula, the upcountry of Maui, and seeing those fires and what had happened. And to me, it's always a journey through the history of my home, because when I journey out there to the west side, to Maui Komohana, I have very strong relationships out there because of people that I've known and met, people I've been grateful to call friends and family. I have distant relatives out there. And then to see Lahaina town being burned down invokes the kind of like grief and also too a recognition of the powers that are awakening on that land. You know, the things that have happened is so devastating and so heart-wrenchingly sad to see families that no longer have anything, their livelihoods are gone, and the way that they understand themselves is changing, and it's happening so fast, and they have to recreate again. And it reminds me of the story of what happens to all of our ancestors. We call them natural disasters now, but before, when we were in relationship with that, we just knew this was a part of being alive. Like, this is what it meant to be human, that we didn't have control, and all that we loved would one day be gone, and we would migrate again and start life again. So this is a call, I believe, to a very endearing part of a human quality that we've always had and just forgotten and probably left aside and neglected. And so it's dried up, it's dried up. And then now we're faced with the fire that has come through. So being on the ground, it's much more involved on the communal effort. What we have out here in Maui is a very strong sense of tribe. And that includes everyone, not just Native people. It includes local people, includes people who love Maui, includes people all across the world who have had some kind of connection or relationship to Maui. Even for me, I've married people out here. I've married over like 1,000 couples in the course of 10 years that I've been in fishing out here. Isn't that crazy? Like, when I think about that. And then also too, of like, how many times have I been out there doing tours for people on those waters out at Oluwalu and in Lahaina town, and taking them out into the water. And then how many times I've gone up to the mountain. So when I talk about community, on my perspective, I'm like, this is what we're always ready to do for each other, because we do live on an island. We have to be resourceful. Although 90% of our food comes from outside of us. We're not self-sustainable. We don't have food sovereignty here. So with this happening, I'm like, okay, government is not here for us. They never have been. It's not what it's about. Hawaii is here for the United States to make a profit off of, and for people to fulfill a fantasy that they've always wanted to come to a special island and learn a culture, just be on vacation and vacate from their life. So this fire was a very clear understanding for people of like, okay, we need to really wake up. We really need to start pushing these things towards that. This is the time for us to come together more strongly and to unify. And that's what I'm seeing on the ground. So it's not even about what the media says about these large organizations. They're not doing much. I mean, they've come to isolate and to hold things, and the governor plays a part, and the mayor, and there's all these different players. It's like a who's who did it and passing out the blame. Lawsuits are going, but that's all a distraction, because what's really inherent to the thing is that the human being needs to come to a place of right relationship. And the history that has happened to that place, the taking of water, it's just calling in another spirit, an ancient soul that has come through. And I don't think it's a conspiracy theory, direct energy weapons and all this stuff. Everybody's talking all these things. I'm like, you're not even here. Come here and see that there's a beauty here. But that's, the disaster limelight. And I think that's kind of the issue. So when I go out, this is what I focus on. Who's leading these projects? Who's leading the next motion? What is their vision? Okay, does that align with other Native leaders in Native communities, Indigenous communities? Okay, kind of not. But then they also have history together. So how do we navigate that history? There's so much people that have to start forgiving each other. That's part of our tribalness too, is that we're here for each other. And then once the dust settles and the ash starts getting moved out, what do we do with each other? So that's where we're at 3 weeks now, is trying our best to take care of the families directly with what they need, because there's over 6,000 people displaced. And how do we continue to support them mentally, emotionally, spiritually? Because at this point, the grieving is hitting really hard. And people out there at the different hubs that are in leadership, they've had to take care of people who have heart attacks and need their medication, people overdosing, people drinking heavily. And that's a lot. And all they have is volunteer groups. So that's kind of the situation we have right now.
Thank you so much for that overview. And, you
Yeah,
touched on a lot of really core seeds here that are coming to life in this event. And one of the things, that really stood out is if we focus on the media manipulation and who's the good guys, who's the bad
yeah,
guys, and we get down the rabbit hole of all the conspiracy theories and all the possible things that are behind something like this, we lose out the powerful lessons that mother nature is wanting to teach us, and it really is, like you said, this wake up
yes,
call. And so I think the real lesson, the medicine from, this disaster, as well as all disasters, is, to wake up and come into right relationship with the earth once again, and to go into a personal
mm-hmm.
investigation on the community level, on the regional level, on the nation level of what that looks like, and to really come back into radical responsibility. And I think, the resiliency of the
Yeah,
Hawaiian peoples is something that really has always inspired me, because through everything that your peoples have gone through and suffered, there is this beautiful sense of community and coming together, and really forming bonds
mm-hmm.
that carry you through, right? And that there's a lot of beauty that I think we're
Yeah,
also witnessing during this time. But one thing that I think you mentioned here, as well as I've heard you talk a lot about in some of your other shares throughout this time, is like, this can't just be disaster limelight. We really have to wake up and
yeah,
learn. And if we don't, these unfortunate disasters will continue to take place. And so I really just
entirely.
honor, this wake up call for all of humanity. And I think one of the things that this disaster is touching that is really beautiful is, like, a lot of people, whether they're native or not, do have a connection to the islands, and maybe it is rooted in
Yeah,
this tourism or in values that maybe are not truly aligned with reciprocity with the earth and with the land, but it is touching the hearts and the
yeah,
minds of a lot of people. And so one of my prayers through this occurrence is that it doesn't just become a instance that passes, and then the Hawaii people are once again forgotten about, which happens so much in history, as well as to other people all over the world in different situations. And
yes,
so it's ultimately, like, really us as humanity, we have to take responsibility for why these things are happening, and to stop silencing the cries of the earth mother and start to return to the real
yes,
questions, right? The questions that the media are posing are distractions. They're literally manipulation tools that are
mm,
getting us to get sidetracked and to not focus on the real questions that we need to be asking. And one of the things that I feel like you have been
definitely.
touching on that is so crucial and powerful and important is how destroyed indigenous ecologies actually making our planet susceptible to natural disasters. And so I would
Yes.
love if you could share with us a little bit more about that, maybe go into a little bit more about, like, the water grabs and the land grabs and things that we're seeing happen during this disaster, and then really, like, bringing it home for what are the messages, what are the teachings that we need to be getting from this.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, beautiful. Thank you. Yeah. hmm Yeah, when I think of yeah, the indigenous ecologies and what have happened in the in the past. So we have a saying in Hawaii. So we have olelo no eo, is the way we call our sayings, or like poetries, or I guess like idioms or something like that. So we have ikawa mamua koa mahope, which means our future is in the past. So in order to understand our future, we look to the past, and it's orientation. So as Kanaka Maoli, the orientation is we face the west, which is Komohana, and then we have north Akau, south Hema, and then behind us is Hikina, which is the east. So that's just one orientation. Depending on who you are in the role that you play in life, those orientations might change because it's needed, But I just so happen to be, a griever, as somebody that come and like ho'omaka is prepared and present with these things, and kunaomaka, seeing, you know, the different spiral dynamics that are playing out amongst humanity and human more than human, other than human. So it's a way to look to the past to face our future. So what that means is the occurrences that are going on right now with what has happened to Maui is something that's been going on for almost 200 years on these islands. And so when we look at the process of becoming a nation from one person that went, who's an ancestor who went and conquered the islands. If you ask someone else, he's a unifier. But when he conquered the islands and put us into a nation, now we're playing the game of monarchy on a large scale with other world powers. So the way that Hawaii was perceived at that time is the same way it's continued to be looked at. So we've lost a lot of ourselves in our indigenous way, in our life way, because of our introduction into the insanity of what we call imperialization and westernization. Yeah. So we're just the recent inductees into all of that when it comes that way. So when I look at the disaster here, it's similar paper war in a way, of a paper genocide of a people, because as soon as a disaster strikes, everybody wants to be safe and secure. So then government agencies, government leadership will then use emergency proclamations that then lift regulations, that then lift laws that prevent them from taking the water, which has been fought for 20, 30 years, and then gives them the allowance and the permission to then immediately fulfill their agenda pro corporate, buildings and projects under the guise of affordability, under the guise of this is better for you and for the community. So we're doing it for you. So therefore our intentions are good. So we've had, I think, 6 emergency proclamations 3 weeks before the fire. There was one for housing. So when you really start to look at the threads that are being presented, you see like this is all being set in a way for them to fulfill whatever agenda that they have already concocted before all of this. So that's the hardship to carry all of that, because even from looking at our past, so 1810, we have a monarchy, 1893, it's thrown over. And then all the way to annexation to becoming a state. During all of that time, we've had immigration come, we've been gentrified. So the Native community, we're only 10% of the population or less. Mm-hmm. And we're the most susceptible to illnesses, disease, lifestyle diseases. We have the poorest education and pay. So,
and the most disenfranchised, right? So the Native people haven't even played a role in the policies that were brought into action in the last 200 years.
Exactly. And so then now with all of that understood as the basis, it's like, I always bring it back to the bigger story. This is what has happened to all of our people. I don't concern myself what skin color that you have. This has happened to all of your ancestors. And if you can feel any amount of that being relevant to you and relatable to you, it's not just about Maui. It's not just about getting Hawaiian lands back in Hawaiian hands. There's only so much of us. To me, we can talk about what's going on in Lahaina and what's happening, but the larger story is that we all need to start understanding our ancestry and what had happened to us and what these larger powers that we call government or whoever else has done to all of us. So when we awaken into that, there's a place for another world to be imagined and to be dreamed about when we see that, because there was ancestors who had come before who cared deeply, and we are their dream. And there's ancestors who didn't care at all, who were only living for the time that they had, and they didn't dream of us. And so we're living in that. And what I'm trying to do is flip it on its head of saying, look, as much as we need help as Hawaiian people, we don't need saving because we've been enduring this for so long. What we need is understanding. What we need is knowledge from people. What we need is people to empathize with themselves and to move with us in a similar way. So what's happening in Lahaina, is very different than what's happening upcountry, but that one gets all the attention because it burned a historic Lahaina town. But that Lahaina town was built over sacred grounds. When we talk about indigenous ecologies, it was built over a wetland, a marshland. And, this phrase is go on, it was the Venice, of the Pacific, because there was so much water there. So how is this possible? Oh, well, okay, sugar plantation come, all the land that you see over 60,000 acres, close to 100,000 acres planted with pineapple and sugarcane, all the way from central Maui to West Maui. So people don't realize that, because once that happens, where's all the water going to come from? Well, we have two of the wettest places in the world, Maui Komahana and East Maui. They're taking 150 million gallons a day easily. So if all that water is returned, we don't have the systems in place. We're not ready for the return of our indigenous ecology. So there's a lot of work for us to do. But the spiritual significance of what that is that when you restrict that water and you're taking it, with all the plantation lands going fallow, what comes is invasive grasses, and those grasses are highly susceptible to fires because they're not native grasses, which would normally be like what the prairie lands used to look like in Turtle Island. You have these large, robust grasses that hold a lot of shade in little pockets for other life to live and keeps the nourishment in the soil saturated. So that's normally what we would have. So Malu'ulu'olele, which is the original name of Lahaina, and so we're going back in history now. Malu'ulu'olele, which means in the shade groves of breadfruit trees of Lele. Lele, being Lahaina, was the place of a port. It's where people would commit trade because it was close to Lanai and Molokai. So from there, being Lele was a leaping place, but also we have different, what you call it, like outlet, like from the coastline where the kind of like the bay, the rock formation go out. We call that also Lena, or like Lele Uhani. That's where our ancestor spirit, they leap off to go to the next beach of stars, to hop in their canoe and travel with us with the different star houses to go to the next beach of stars where other ancestors are waiting for them. So there's so much spiritual significance and historical significance. So when you take the water, of course, there's going to be consequences. I mean, what do you expect? Sadly, the consequences, sadly, people's lives have been lost. Sadly, people's livelihoods are gone and their experiences of a home is gone. But it was also already a standing memorial to what the plantation era already was, sadly. So that now there's a place for us to reimagine and reconvene ourselves with each other and with nature, and to, not that one history was better than the other, but if we're talking about natural law, natural order of things, because it's similar to like what you said, we're always giving in the spirit, feed them. Yeah. We talk about feeding all the time, feeding and eating, but we also talk about, spiritual lawyering. Like, you got to make a case, you got to plead the case. But if you're out there not giving your due, something's going to come back to you, because the unseen world is the seen world, and the dream is the wake world. So that's what I want to talk about too with people, is there's a deeper understanding of the sacredness of land and right relationship that not only enhances our life, because it's not just about numbers and how many what you call biohacking experiences you can create in your life. It's like being out there in the world in such a way that you have a presence that is undeniable, and it comes to you because it's a gift from the world that you love. So it makes you unique and gives you style. It gives you an attitude that's necessary for a human being to continue to be alive. And I think that's what we need to do, honestly. I know I'm kind of talking in circles, but I mean, some people can follow along. So we give gifts, right? We give gifts. We call them ho'okupu. And these gifts, like ho'o is like to do, or actually to make a kupu is like a way we call like a fern. But when we make these ho'okupu, it's like we're putting in delicious stuffs, to be flowers, maybe cooked food, maybe sacred item, and we wrap them up in our la'i, our tea leaves, and we make these little bundles and we put them on our altars. And that's us feeding the holy, feeding the sacred, so that they know that we care about them, because they feed us all the time. And so something has to give. So then we sing the song, and you had mentioned earlier too, like, oh, we have grief songs, funerary dirges, lamentations, and we call them kanikau, which is a mourning, or like howewe. And a lot of times when people cry or they wail here in Hawaii, they go awe, awe, and it shakes the voice, and you can hear the cry. because we go to a ceremony. I'm making me cry already. When you go to a ceremony out on the west side, we call it Haulelani, and it's a way to give respect and honor those who passed. So we make these braids with these dried tea leaves. Tea leaf is a very functional plant, very medicinal plant for us that we use in ceremony. We use as adornments. We make what you could footwear with them. Make rain capes, everything. But we also use them in ceremony. So we braid them. We make a ka, and it looks like a eve, like a pico, eve, umbilical cord. And so from that braid of that umbilical cord, you have a family member come or a friend that's lost someone, and they go to the umuahi, a fire pit, and then they say the name of the person, and they put it into the fire, and then the smoke goes up, and it feeds that person, it feeds their soul for them to go in lele, to go fly, to be with the ohana again. And so when you hear people in Hawaii, they cry, they go, awe, awe. There's a shaking, there's a quivering in the voice, because that i'i, that kind of vibrato, is a remembrance of the resonance of who we are as people. So we have this word kanaka, and a lot of people are familiar with kanaka Maoli, but what a lot of people don't understand is that kanaka means the quiverer, the quivering, the one that quivers. So when we chant and we sing, especially in that morning, that awe quivers, awe, awe, because we're calling back that time, the ancient time of the quivering, for us to go back, to our homes, spiritual houses. So yeah, a little bit of tears on that one. Thanks for letting me share.
Wow. Thank you so much, my brother. It's so beautiful to just hear your stories and your channel come through in this way, and just profound resonance on so many levels, and so much wisdom and truth. So really just thank you and honor you for the way in which you're preserving the ways of your people, and just celebrating this sacred wisdom that does exist, and it has existed since the beginning of time, and it continues to be here for us, and be a source, a wellspring of nourishment that we can continue to feed from, and let it be the guiding force that carries us through the challenging moments, the challenging times, and letting it be the orientation that brings us home to the heart and home to the true way of living. And so, wow, you just spit some serious truth. There's a lot that you just touched on that I think is really, really important. And
There's
I
a
think,
lot.
there's a lot there. I'm feeling, called to go a little bit more into the spirituality of the grieving, and the lessons there, because you were just opening that portal, and it was feeling really, really powerful.
Yeah.
We're back with our weekly giveaway segment. This week, we're gifting a bottle of one of my favorite go-to plant allies, our Chiliquague Root of Gold Healing Spray. Raíz de Oro, or Root of Gold, is a plant that carries many powerful healing properties. Its use dates back to the pre-Hispanic indigenous cultures of central Mexico. This medicine comes to us from the Sierra de Alvarez region in central Mexico. This potent plant extract has antiseptic, antibiotic, analgesic, antimicrobial, antifungal, and digestive properties. Its uses are immense. You can use it topically for bug bites, wounds, rashes, and burns, treat yeast infections and bacterial infections by diluting in water and applying to the affected area. Take it internally to support the respiratory system, digestive tract, and for mouth health. Honestly, the uses are endless. My favorite way that I've been working with this medicine regularly recently is as a mouth rinse. It leaves my mouth feeling so fresh and clean, and also has been a go-to for me to heal inflammation in the gums surrounding a tooth that was actually giving me some trouble. This is an ultra healer and a must-have in your Plant Allies first aid kit. And now for this week's giveaway winner. Our winner this week is Marissa Magical, who writes, Wow, words can't even begin to describe how grateful I am to have found the Four Visions Company and podcasts. I have been listening to podcasts for the last 10 years, and I feel like I think I would trade all the others for this one podcast. This podcast affirms what I know in my body to be true and gives me new resources to grow my knowledge. I always feel renewed and inspired after listening, and I look forward to the new podcast each week. Thanks for visions. Wow. Oh my goodness. Thank you for your kind words, Marissa Magical. We are so pleased to hear these conversations have been supporting your spiritual path. You just won a bottle of our Chili Coague healing spray. Please email us at the podcast at fourvisionsmarket.com to coordinate the delivery of your package. To enter this ongoing raffle, all you need to do is write an honest review of our podcast, either on iTunes or YouTube. Sorry, Spotify, Google Podcasts users, Google and Spotify do not allow for written reviews. So please head over to iTunes or YouTube to leave your written review and enter to win each week. That's it. Each week, we'll announce a new winner, read their honest review on the show, and give away some awesome products. And now, back to today's episode. So, one of the things that I think modern society obviously has lost is how to grieve and how to process pain. And that's pretty acknowledged, understood at this point. For anyone who's walking a spiritual path, we know that this is our tendency to suppress or to push away, to silence and to forget rather than feeling. And you just kind of opened it a little bit there. But one of the things that the traditional wisdom lineages do have is they all have their grieving traditions and the ways in which they carry through their people through times of immense hardship and challenge. And like you've been sharing, the Hawaiian people have had many, many opportunities to practice this and to really cultivate this process and this ceremony of grief. And so I have a couple questions for you. The first is, what happens when we don't grieve? What are the implications of not grieving? And then how are some of the ways in which we can connect deeper with the process of grieving to let it midwife us and carry us through the hardships of life and what it means to live in this human body, in this human flesh?
Yeah, this is it's a deep one, and I'm glad for the invitation too, and to speak on it. And yeah, let me. I think the way I can say it too, I guess for people is when I ask a question to a man, like I say, man or woman, it could be anybody. I say, well, how are you doing? Oh, I'm good. Even with everything happening, with the world falling apart, I'm fine. Oh, like, okay. I hear you're fine, but also I was just wondering, like, do you feel what's going on? Like, I do, and I'm good. And when I hear that, I hear, 6, 7 generations of people who haven't cried residing in that one person. They're showing up. They can't express it. They can't even give a little quiver to the voice, because grieving is a generosity that we offer to the things that we miss. And if we don't do it, then our soul's hardened, it turns to stone, and we end up hating ourselves. And you see how people react or respond when they cannot grieve, is that they don't know how to honor life either. And so there's many teachers that I've had who have taught me how to have grace and gratitude in the grieving. And the grieving and the grace and the gratitude are held in the same hands on one body. They're kind of like, way my teacher would say it too, is, they're housemates, they're roommates, they're paying the same bills, but they also have a very different way of going about how to do that. So if you look at the world, it's very different than what society is. because the world already knows how to grieve losses. Animals do it all the time. That's the precious thing about our animals, whether they're, the ones that we've domesticated and kept in our homes or the wild ones. Because the domesticated ones, they'll harbor everything we give to them. If we don't know how to cry, those little ones, they'll come and they'll hold us in the special ways that they can. And they'll endure it. But over time, if we don't know how to process our own grief, we put it onto our poor little animals and they start to get sick. And then if you look at the wild animals and we see them and we don't know how to grieve for the places, the lands, and the environments that they inhabit, then we tend to go out and we shoot them and we take them. We poach them and we skin them. And there's no respect in that other than the commodification of wilderness. And so that's a lack of grief. And grieving is not feeling, it's a doing. It's an action. And so as I said about the generosity of this grief, it's like, you have to be a singer, right? I didn't say you have to have a good voice, but you got to be a singer. Because every environment that you go into, whether it's wild or feral or fallow, there's spirit there, there's soul there. So you want to be able to sing to them to let them know that you're coming around. You also got to sing when you leave so that you know that you cared about them, that there is enough energy being put towards them that they know they felt you and you felt it too. So when I think about it too, it's grief is love's natural way to honor what it misses, and we praise the things that we got because we don't know how long we're going to have them. It's just like a child that grows up, you miss them when they're a baby. And then they start walking, it's over now. And they're going to have their own life. It's not going to work. And then the next day is, it happens again. They just grew up and they're writing already. They're making their own paintings. They did it again. They're a teenager. They don't want to talk to me no more. And they end up hating me. And it's all crazy. And it's all the grief that's happening all at the same time. And I think people who can't do that, and they've isolated themselves already. And maybe that's kind of the condition of this phone that, we talk to each other. One condition of the spirit of seeing is that it takes so much of the relationship of that grief away and we've outsourced it. And so when we outsource this grief, then we see wars being committed. Because we don't know how to handle our own grief. So we're going to go put it on somebody else. And we see weapons of mass destruction being created. There's already been over 200 explosions of atomic bombs and missiles and things like that, of that large scale. That is a result of not being able to grieve. The destruction of environments, the taking of old growth forests, that's the inability to grieve. Because what happens to a person, and I can say mostly it's men, I can honestly say that mostly it's men because they've hardened their hearts, right? They've hardened their hearts. They haven't learned how to grieve, so they haven't poured any good water onto the stone of their heart. And so what do they look at? Narrow in vision. I have to make this money. I have to make a living. So it's better for me to just take what's around, commodify it and sell it rather than live destitute or live without. And that's the result of grieving. I think capitalism is born out of being unable to grieve. I think communism, socialism, all of these forms of government come from the people who don't know how to grieve. And by me saying this, I'm not saying that there was a better time. I'm not trying to romanticize something. I'm just trying to court it through. I'm not trying to be seductive about thought. I'm trying to be honest about what I'm seeing and what I felt because of that inability to grieve. And it just makes me sad like talking about it because it runs so deep into people. And maybe, like you said, maybe for, people that have maintained a little bit of the threads of the grand tapestry, which we would call indigenous people, they're just holding that space for us to remember again too. I don't lay claim so strongly to just being Hawaiian or just to be like, oh yeah, I'm a citizen of the world. I don't do that either. I just know that I'm a man in a place that I care for and that I love. And in order for me to continue to do the things I do, I have to grieve them and to understand and remember that the brokenness is what shapes me and not to just go too far into gratitude in the way that I'm trying to escape it all and to deny the fact of how deeply hurt I am. But I also not to fall into the grieving, into the action so hard that I've dug myself a pit that I can't get out of. And I ain't able to receive the hands of loved ones and friends and family that are trying to get me out because I've been there too. So my teachers would always say, the sign of a sane society is that not everyone is insane at the same time. So that was my little rant about grief.
It's beautiful. So beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing. And Yeah, it's something that, we really need to begin watering the seeds again to find this wholeness, as in
Hmm.
find our humanity again. And to do that, it has to be, it's complex. It has many different layers. And I love how you brought in the gratitude element too, and then really making sure that we don't lose ourselves in the grief because it's all connected. And it really is this tending to the garden of so many different elements of the deepest parts of our being and what makes us human, what makes us, you know, here for this experience, this human experience. And I think that really there lies a road forward. There's so much wisdom and power in the ability to feel the totality of what it means to be alive, what it means to
Hmm.
carry in our blood the generations of oppression, of suffering, whatever role our ancestors played, as well as the
Totally.
generations of forgetting how to experience pain in a way that honors
Yeah.
it, celebrates it, and shows us the way forward. Because when we don't do that, the way forward is built from the human being's ego, right? And not from a place of
Yeah.
prayer and from a place of really surrendering and putting it all on the altar of love, on the altar of
Yeah.
nature and of creation, right? And I think so much of the human being's demise comes from this place of thinking that we can do it on our own when we never have done it that way. And even when we have thought we have, it really hasn't been by our own means. And so to really come back, one thing that's really coming to me
Yeah.
is like this element of humility and coming into our interconnectedness with all life. And what does that look like? What does that feel like? What does that mean for the way that we want to live our lives, the way that we want to leave our legacy for the next generations? And I feel like we're really at this
Yeah.
super pivotal point, in humanity's evolution where we are going to have to make some big decisions. And these decisions are like
Yeah.
really coming to the forefront, and disasters like what is happening going on in Maui is like such an incredible hyperbole and like exaggeration. It's like so in our
Hmm.
face. Nature is literally like
Yeah.
right in our face, showing us, asking us, pleading with us to
Yeah.
see what our choices have caused. And then the other part of it is like, where
Definitely.
do we go from here? And you had mentioned, that ultimately like it does come down to, every single person choosing life and empowering themselves. I don't remember exactly the exact words that you use, but when we're talking about like what the
Yeah.
way forward looks like, I think that that's an important conversation as well, and not just in the Maui disaster, but in the state of humanity, right? And we have like in this time
Yeah.
that we're living in, where some big choices have to be made, and with what's going
Yes.
on in Maui, I feel like there's this talk about the smart city that's going to be rebuilt there, and we're like
Yeah.
seeing it so clearly, like, okay, it could go in one direction or the other. Which one is it going to be, right? And
Totally.
so, what does that
Yeah.
look like, right? And then what is
Yes.
needed? What
It's a
is
good
needed
topic.
to choose the
Yeah.
right way forward? Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I love it. Thank you for expressing that because I was like, it just got me clicking. I'm like, yeah, okay, good. So here's a little. This is going to be a very unpopular opinion, I'm sure. So when we talk about the 15-minute city and what that is, I don't know the intricacies or complexities of that too much, other than that this has been a very coordinated plan of wanting that. So here's a little background too. Here on Maui, we have well, like four of the richest men in the world that have properties out here, and that includes Jeff Bezos, Mark Zuckerberg, Larry Ellison, the guy at Oracle. I think Elon Musk is also like trying to get things established out here because when the disaster had happened, Starlink is all over the place. They positioned so much of the Starlinks. Everybody wants one. There's a group called Red Lightning that came out here that was really pushing that through to help people so they can be in connection and have reception because everything was done. So when I look at that happening, And then I look at what the government is doing, and then I understand what we as a people are trying to do. Everything is jostling for position. So our ability to regain sovereignty as a nation for a people is going to be really difficult. That's probably not going to be something that we'll see in our lifetimes because of the amount of military presence that is out here in Hawaii. There's a strong, strong military presence. I forget the numbers right now, the statistics, right? We have military bases on many of the islands, especially on Oahu, training grounds. Kaho'olawe, which is one of our ancient islands, was used previous as a bird sanctuary, and then it got logged, and then it was used as a ranch land, by our monarchy, and then became a target island for bombs. That is a very, very dangerous proposal for us to suddenly say we're going to take on the U.S. military industrial complex. That's very dangerous. However, we do have these tech giants that are out here, and they love this place because of what it represents and because of what it has. Like, from a rational point, we have water here, we have clean air here, we have an ocean, we're isolated. It's perfect for whatever happens in the world, whatever devastation comes through. Hawaii is protected, especially Big Island mountains save us from a lot of hurricanes from the other islands. So there's something that's there. And I believe with the amount of money that they have and what they're doing, maybe that smart city will come through. Maybe they're going to make a position for themselves to have more power out here, right? So what would that look like? What will that look like to have different, like, corporate tech companies that have more money than governments across the world in different countries vying for position in Hawaii? So people are talking about 15-minute city. I'm thinking in 20 years from now, who's going to own these islands when the empire falls? Is it going to be these tech companies that are pushing AI and Starlinks and doing all this stuff? And are they going to somehow create like a whole nother version of what what is that, Geneva Convention, that now they each have their own island, and nobody can attack us, nobody can come here, because if you do, this is the new power that has been established amongst these people that have these companies. So, not a popular opinion, but when we talk about 15-minute cities, that's the thing we have to look at. Like, they're not here just because they want to go on vacation. They're here because they're planning on establishing themselves for long term. And what does that mean for us? And we look at the role that celebrities play, in the American psyche, and what that creates, this derangement for people. People get obsessed with the conspiracy of theory, the conspiracy theory. And I understand why, because it's almost like you're involved in a secret that not everybody else knows. And so then it becomes a hype thing to speak on, because it is so confusing, and it puts us in that state of disorientation. And when we're disoriented, now we're more easily manipulated. Now it's easier to play this game. So I try to look at not just factual matters, but I try to look at, again, what has happened in history, what's happening now, and how would that play out? Because before it was corporate tech giants, it was plantations. Mm-hmm. And after plantations, it was their corporate predecessors, which just so happened to be land development and real estate companies. So what's the next iteration? So that's how I feel about the smart city. I'm like, that's just one little thing and the bigger. So what do we got to do? My route is boots on the ground. Learn how to take care of yourself, because that's what all villagers do. I'm not looking for a nation. I'm not looking for a monarchy. I'm looking for village-minded people. I'm looking for villagers to come through that have the ability to care for themselves and multiple people. They know what they need to do on the land. They can take care of any kind of situation that comes up because they are resourceful. And we have the teachings. And that's what my method is happening right now. I'm working with nonprofits, starting nonprofits, using this money to teach people how to do agroforestry, how to do permaculture, how to do aquaculture, how to build, how to work with electricity, even how to defend themselves. All of that's coming through now because of what's happened. Because I can't sit back anymore. Because I thought I needed to learn. I thought I needed to involve myself more deeply so I could, be a voice for things. And now I'm understanding, like, oh shoot, I just got to go do it. Because I see the things that not everybody's seeing. Doesn't make me special. Just makes me more responsible. And I don't know if I can hold all that. I got to have a village of people to help me along. And so that's what I see. If we can all find that part of ourselves and get in touch with it, now it's a regenerative leadership, because I'm looking for cooperation, collaboration, compassion, systems of living systems, within each other, and creating a whole web. What we're planning out here on Maui amongst all of our people, it's not new, it's not new, but it's something that with what we're doing right now, our communication and how we share that message with each other. Now we're getting back to different tribes of people living this life that can support each other in whatever happens. Because it's not about what you know, it's how consistent you are with it. And it's not just how good you are specialized, but how adaptable you are. So that's to me is the prayer.
That's epic. I love it. Because
and grieving along the way too.
I love that answer, because I think, it might be the first response to think that we have to stop those tech companies or bond together to ensure that that doesn't happen. And it's almost as if that is a trap that they want us to fall into. Right. And so to take the approach of radical responsibility and sovereignty and focusing on what we want, rather than letting our energy be drained by fighting this huge battle that may or may not be able to be won, right? That's one agenda. But it's almost as though it's like the exponential catalyst of sustainable communities being built, more people returning to the land, more people choosing, sacred radical responsibility, sacred reciprocity, living in the value system that we want to bring forth. That in itself has a snowball effect. And so I really appreciate that response, and I'm also involved in, some ecological eco villages in Costa Rica, and I love seeing this new way of living showing up and people choosing it, because, one person makes that decision and moves their family to a sustainable community and starts to live off the land and learn. And then, their brother and sisters come and their friends come and their parents come. And it's like, that is truly the solution. And so it's a really is actually very inspiring, because if we try and sit here today and try and figure out the way in which we're going to beat, big corporations and the huge tech mongols, that answer probably isn't going to come out of this conversation or the next 10 or the next 10,000, right? So if we're there, we're wasting our time. But if we're focusing on, what we're wanting to create and making, real steps forward in that direction, that is really, so important and so beautiful, because it's incredible to watch more people waking up. And one thing I've noticed on the spiritual path is you don't inspire people with fear. You don't inspire people by talking about all the negative things and all the potential, threats that exist. You inspire people by joyful, well living, right? By beauty, by living in harmony, and by truly living in joy and living a good life, living whatever that looks like, whatever that means. But so, I think that that's a beautiful message to leave people with today, as well as, also how we can all be a support to, what's going on in Hawaii, and how those who might be listening to this conversation can support through their resources and different efforts. So I would love to hear a little bit more about some of the boots on the ground work that you're doing in Maui right now at this time, because like you mentioned, this is a very much a humanities issue, and so it is an opportunity for us to unite, to come together, to show support. And so you've been doing really incredible work fundraising. I would love to hear about that. I also would love to hear a little bit more about the work that you do outside of disaster relief, which I know is very present right now, but people who are inspired by what's come through on this conversation, who maybe want to learn from you or work with you, if you could kind of give us the full download of what you're all about, and different opportunities to come learn more from you. And before you do, I also just really want to acknowledge your teachers, Kale, because you have had some good ones. I can
Yeah.
tell from the way that you're
Yeah.
sharing and showing up. So I also really just want to honor the
Yeah.
ones
Thank
who
you.
paved the way for you and who have supported you in coming into
Yeah.
yourself and your medicine and the authentic leadership that you're demonstrating at this time. So lots of praise, blessings, and tremendous gratitude for the ones that walked before you. And yeah, it's been a real
Uh,
pleasure. And so yeah, thank you so much.
oh, mahalo. Thank you for that too. Ah, beautiful. Yeah, you have a way with words. I enjoy it very much. It's a good wordsmith and put on a beautiful sequence of language that I love following the trail that you make is what I'm trying to say. So thank you. And yeah, nana ikikumu. Look to the source. Look to the wisdoms that are there. Look to the trees. And yes, I've had many great teachers, and as I can see, so have you. And I'm grateful for that. That we've had, a mark of what could be elderhood in our lives in a time where that's scarce, and it's not something that is truly being brought amongst the generations that have come before us. And so, I'm grateful for those ones always. And I don't say their names very much because they're not the ones out there trying to make a big, thing like I am. Trying to go out there and share more of the word. They're more at home, and they want to be with their families and their community and with their sacred sites doing their ceremonies. And so I always praise them for the teachings. Like I said, I'm a maker's mark. I've been forged into, a tool to provide the things again in a new old way. I also become the whetstone just to sharpen that blade at times to help people or to fix that tool. And maybe also like tools as they are get broken at times. And that's when the gods, they lament and cry only because they know you're going to fix it again and go back and help and be of service. So when I think about myself in that way, outside of all the things that have been coming around too, a lot of my work has been around the realms of mentorship and then also primarily with brotherhood and revitalization of life ways that are place-based and culturally connected. And so it's a rediscovering of authenticity, and confidence and courage, in a time of remembering when everything's trying to, get you to be forgotten, amnesia and anesthesia. So that's what I do. That's been my work. I've traveled around, the world, just spreading that message of the ancient future and this emergent culture of awakening. So with that being said, everybody can support the families, out there in Lahaina right now. If they want to go direct, they have a Venmo established for each of these families. So if you're on Instagram, you can look at Lahaina Ohana Venmo, and there you can directly give. The GoFundMe that we've established through Sacred Sons is still up. We were using that money initially for supplies and for helping people that needed things, and to giving money to some schools for the students directly. And then now that money is being put towards another nonprofit, a locally based one that's been around for 8 years, that educates people, like how I was talking about the revitalization of land, and educates people on how to use various systems and living systems and being with teachers. So all that takes money because there's equipment that needs to be that we need to get. There's teachers that need to be helped and supported. And then there's also the land projects that we're on, these properties with these people that are living there, in hopes to create villages in different communities in this time now. So they need support and being able to get materials. So contributing to that GoFundMe is very helpful for us because it's going to go to the nonprofit to fulfill the next vision of revitalizing our homelands. And then I also have my website. So if you wanted to check me out, it's kalekaalekahi.com. My name, KaleKaalekahi.com. There you can find the mentorship. I make what you call articles on Substack and all this stuff. So you can get my book list. You sign up for my email. And then also on my IG, same thing, kale.kaalekahi. You can check out my link tree and everything's there for you as well. So yeah, just stepping into that leadership again, more so, deeper and deeper, with a beautiful burden I carry, just trying not to get a hunchback along the way.
Mm-hmm.
Stay a little joyful and happy and keep smiling. So.
Mm. Mahalo, my brother. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
It's been a pleasure. Mm-hmm. Wow, so beautiful. Okay, thank you. I wanted to ask if you would share a prayer with us to complete this
Yeah.
conversation. I feel like that's a perfect way to close.
Yes, absolutely. And so, yeah, I'm grateful for this one too. This is a quick little prayer that we do primarily at the beginning of every ceremony. And there's been this pule that's been sent out. So that's one of the things too. If you go to my IG, you can get a QR code that provides all of this. And I'll share it with you too, Mariah, as well. So you can send to your community and you can learn all of these prayers. There's also a video of Kumu, of a Kumu, showcasing these prayers. But I'll share this one with all of you. This is a beautiful one. It's called Ehomai. It talks about granting, to us, the knowledges, and not that far above. We don't need to go into the universe. Just like even in the roof of your house, or even right inside your hat, or even in the boughs of trees in the canopy. And it says, grant to us, please, these ways and these knowings through the songs and the chants that come just from above us, where our ancestors reside. Grant to us, please, as we ask, grant to us these ways, grant to us the visions. And it goes like this. E ho mai kai ke mai luna mai e o na mea huna noeu o na mele e ho mai e ho mai e ho mai e ho mai kai ke mai luna mai e o na mea una noeu o na mele e ho mai e ho mai e ho mai e ho mai kai ke mai luna mai e o na mea una noeu o na mele e ho mai e ho mai e ho mai e. Mahalo na tupuna, mahalo na akua, mahalo na aumakua, to those who've walked before us, to those that come after us, to the collective consciousness that we continue to create. With all the spirits of those revelations that we have, plant, animal, mineral, and ethereal, we say gratitude and thank you. And may the pathways that we walk continue to leave a little bit of food and nourishment for those that are continuously guiding us, watching over us, and blessing the spaces in between us. From the zenith to the horizon, we say thank you again. Many praises.
From everyone at the Four Visions Market family, we would like to thank you for listening to our podcast. We really hope that you've enjoyed the conversation and gained many new insights on plant medicines, ancestral wisdom, and much more. Please remember to visit our website at www.fourvisionsmarket.com for more resources and information on plant medicine and spiritual tools. And please don't forget to follow us across social media for regular updates on upcoming episodes. We are grateful for your support and look forward to continuing this path with you all. Until next time, take care, stay present, and stay connected.